To begin, I'd like to talk about how the internet itself is able to have a varying styles of interactivity and modality when compared to print literacy. To begin with, I'm able to create things like this video here, in which you have both my voice, the audio, and the video side of things, which goes outside the standard realms of traditional print literacy, which most people experience, where it's simply maybe perhaps 2, maybe 3 modalities that end up getting involved. First, it's going to be the print itself. It's something that is going to be involved. It's why it's called print literacy. It's in every single piece of print we're going to encounter. The second is going to be the pictures or images that some people will put into the books themselves. Now, you don't find this very often in in adult-oriented novels, but in textbooks, the images are there. They help provide more reference points. In kids' literature, children's literature, they're there to grab the attention and complete a story for the children without having as many words on the page. And they also are able to be another level in which the interaction is there. The third is something that is mainly found in children's literature simply due to the nature of where we see it in traditional print, and that is of touch, the textile pieces of material that some clever, in my opinion, writers will put into the pages of their children's novels to give the kids something else to touch. And while that's well and good, the internet, on the other hand, as I mentioned before, is able to create something like this video, which brings in a whole other level. This is something that allows you to be more creative, more expressive in different ways. It is another form of literacy which you need to be able to understand and communicate with the technology. This video, for example, is being done using just a simple video camera system through something like a BlackBerry Playbook, iPad, or flip phone, video camera. Any of those can make a video like this. And that is a different level of interaction modality that you can have. You can create an actual face-to-face response, well, vicarious face-to-face response using a video such as this. And it will let you take it to a different level outside the standard realms of interaction that you find with print literacy. That's the other thing. With traditional print literacy, it is very much going to be a one-way street. You have the writer producing and the reader consuming. And if there's any reciprocal interaction, what it is, it's going to be a much slower process, and you're going to have the reader or consumer actually write and respond to the author of that book in many situations if you're working outside the realms of the internet. What this has created is, on the internet, we can now interact almost simultaneously. If I create a video like this, all you need is another camera of some kind, connection to the internet, and you can then create your own video response to what I'm doing right here. Honestly, within a few minutes of viewing this video, that's all it really needs. You can create a response. You can actually interact far faster with the authors, which is probably the biggest change that you're going to find in terms of interactivity between the pair. Outside of the fact that on the internet, there's a much different method of actually addressing the texts involved, addressing the different modes of communication. It is far different to work on the internet than it is with a regular piece of traditional print literacy. You've got more things involved. It's no longer just a simple linear process. In fact, if you take a look at the wiki I'm actually going to have this link to, you'll find things all over the place. You've got the top section, which is basically like a central guide. You've got the right-hand side of the page over here, which ends up being filled with the links to all the different articles that are already listed on the wiki, which I'm not the only one who's contributed to them. The entire class that I was with has contributed to this. It's created a whole other level of interaction and involvement in terms of how you actually go through the texts. If you wanted to, along the side where we have I have the different articles that are within the wiki that basically make up my essay here. You could go from top to bottom and just go through every different article because they're presented in alphabetical order. But that might not actually be the way that you should do it, because you may have different interests involved. You may want to see why social networking literacy should be taught. You may want to see, what is this social networking literacy to begin with at all? What can I be expected to see? It's a very different environment in which the navigation skills that are required are quite a bit different. And each medium that you get involved with, whether it's just print online, whether you start creating images, whether you do a video like this, which I'm going to be hosting through YouTube, they all create a different sense of interconnectedness and how you approach the different mediums. They allow students to be a lot more flexible with this. When it comes to social networking media, the sheer expansiveness of the internet allows for a student to go outside their typical realms, the typical realms of print literacy, in which you have one way that you have to present things, which is through writing. It can limit and restrict some students. What this basically means is that if they are not necessarily the strongest writer, but they are fantastic on the visual side of things, if they're expected to have a presentation in which print is going to be a major thing involved, or an essay, that's going to cause them to struggle a little bit, because they aren't going to be able to produce the kind of material that they are best able to produce to show what they know. The internet, on the other hand, you can get things involved in essays, such as this video, which is within a part of an essay, which creates an entire level of modality that's going to be involved. It's no longer just the print. We have the video, we have the audio, we have an entire new side of things, which can be brought in to an essay to give it another level, another depth. It can give them a chance to actually play to their own strengths that may not necessarily lie in the print side of things. Suddenly, you have people who can be both actors, they could be directors if they're creating a video itself, they can be speakers, speech givers. If they're much better at doing the talking, the oral side of things, suddenly that can be involved. It's an entirely different realm. And the interconnectedness between the different mediums is able to be seen as well. You can have print, like I have right above me here in this video, which can do an overview. You can have a video itself, like what I'm doing here, which can be a lot more of the in-depth details, a lot more of what could be going on. It's an entirely different way of approaching communication. And it gives students the chance to actually play to their strengths, depending on what they prefer, what they're good at, what they enjoy. And it stops the limitations that can be put in place in a traditional classroom. When you're in a traditional classroom, there is not necessarily, if you're sticking to the traditional mediums of print and that sort of thing, there's not always going to be the ability to have a reflexive adaptation with the students, with what they actually enjoy, with what they're going to spend a lot of their time actually dealing with. The internet, social networks are going to be an increasingly larger and larger part of the children's lives. If you take a look at the Walsh book we examined in class, the uses of it in the classrooms in Australia were fantastic. We were able to see examples of kids interacting from a very young age in social networks where print is involved, where they were able to make videos through claymation, all sorts of different levels, which gave them another way to make a presentation or project. And it gave them a chance to experience what they're going to be dealing with throughout their entire life. It's not something that will go away, and it's something that will be a very, very necessary preparation for them in the future, which is something that also is addressed when you're using social networks to teach in a classroom. You're also prepping them for the future, although that is not necessarily the biggest strength for why you should use it, although it is something that we need to address. But there's one major restriction that is currently in place, at least within the Canadian or Ontario system of schooling at the moment, which can cause a few problems if you're going to be using social networks to teach literacy in a classroom. The biggest one is the technology barrier. Not every student will have a computer or access to a computer at home, which means either you better have a classroom which can handle it, which there are not very many in Canada at the moment, especially in Ontario in the public system. Private's another matter entirely, in which they have different funding, different requirements. They can actually have their students be required to own a laptop or something of the sort to use in the classroom. But the barrier to technology is something that needs to be addressed if you're going to use the internet as a system for teaching, social network literacy as a method of teaching. What this means is you need to ensure that your students will have access to the technology to actually become involved with the interconnectedness of the internet. You want to give them the chance to actually be able to interact with other students, actually take advantage of the scenario that's going to be in place. What this means is you need to make sure they've got the technology they need to have it at their disposal, and you need to make sure that they're going to be able to actually get online to do these sorts of things. So that's one issue that needs to be addressed, and I will continue on in the next video.